Yeah. Beautiful. You want to do this one real quick?
Yeah, let's do this.
The majority of really wealthy people have long-term relationships and are in a monogamous relationship. They're married because the team is a fantastic way to build wealth.
But if the stats are true and whatever percent of people are getting divorces, doesn't that mean that if I'm building wealth, there's a 50-odd% chance that I'm going to lose half of it if I'm married or more?
Well, first off, if you have wealth going in, get a prenup. But what I would say is, and first off, that number is a bit misleading because marriage is becoming a luxury item. It used to be 95% of wealthy people got married and 85% of middle class and poor people got married. It's dropped to less than half among poor people. The bottom line is no one wants to mate with poor men. And wealthy people attract a lot of mates. And generally speaking, really wealthy people, I mean, there's all this, it's fun to do TikToks about Jeff Bezos on a yacht with his new girlfriend and everything. But the majority of wealthy people are actually stay married. And the team is really powerful. We're both working together. We're both making a lot of money. That is really powerful in sharing one set of expenses. You're going to focus on the logistics of our life or our family, and my wife's the professional baller, right? The team is powerful. So this notion that you shouldn't get married, or I'm not suggesting that marriage is for anybody or stay married no matter what. I'm not suggesting that at all, but there's just no getting around it. The team is much more powerful than the individual. And if you break down the numbers of people who are wealthy, they generally speaking invest a lot in their relationships. Wealth is a whole person project. There's a myth that rich people are bad people. The Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, the billionaires crawled over other people to get there. It's just not true. What you generally find among wealthy people, especially people who've made their own money, one of the reasons they're wealthy is they've collected allies along the way. And just as compounding is so powerful with small investments when you're young, bringing some generosity to people when they need help, being a good friend, occasionally checking in, how are you doing, helping people find jobs when they lose a job, being kind, those little investments you make as a young person really add up.
Yeah, this is great. Professor Galloway, I'm a big fan of his. And one of the things he talks about here, there's a couple things, a lot to unpack. I teach a networking course. Collecting people along the way is absolutely true. I try to do as many favors as I can for people and ask for nothing in return. And if I care about somebody, I try to solve problems for them. But the other part that I noticed that I really enjoyed is he's one of the people, he's probably the lead guy decrying that there's a crisis in dating. And he says, nobody wants to marry broke men. It really is true. It's like as women get access to more men that they can see on social media and on dating apps, they start to select for this smaller and smaller group of men up here at the top. And then broke men become less and less desirable. And there was another study I saw where they were going over what is the most likely outcome, what is the most likely symptom to cause a man to not have sex in the last year. And one of the highest precipitators of that was a man being unemployed or underemployed, which means hypergamy is real. When men don't make that much money, it doesn't mean that poor men don't. We all know a guy who's a male stripper who sleeps on the couch who fucks a bunch of girls. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. What I am saying, though, is like, in general, if you want to talk about things that cause women to like not be interested in men, it's like when they can't afford anything. And as more women get to see images of these hyper successful men, they become even less interested in those men at the bottom. And that's what he's talking about there. He says marriage is a luxury. And more than half of poor people now don't want to get married. And the marriage rate for women is at an all-time low.
Well, marriage rate for people in general is an all-time low.
Yeah.
Right now, we're at 6.1 per 1,000. It's the lowest rate in recorded history for the United States.
They're also talking about like babies being like the lowest, like on
fertility
record.
rate.
For the fertility rate, just because of the inflation and how much like everything is costing. Because it's like people are choosing like, hey, do I want to live or do I want to support a child?
Well,
I can't really support
people are doing the two-income, no children.
It's not so much a financial decision because the fertility rate has been below replacement level in the United States since 1975. The time to bang the gong about this was back in the 70s when everybody was having a good old time at Studio 54. Okay, and the reason for that is because of one invention, which is hormonal birth control, which spiked the divorce rates and it separated men and women. It's technology killed marriage. It wasn't fucking feminism. It was technology. Okay. So moving into the 70s, what happens when women go get divorced? They're going to need to have bank accounts. They're going to need lines of credit. They're going to need to be like strong, independent women. Right. And so they become the men that they wanted to marry. And by the way, that's not a Rollo Tomassi line. That's a Gloria Steinem line from 1970. So this has been around for quite some time. If we're going to talk about marriage rates, we're going to talk about fertility rates. They're all connected. They're all correlated together, and they all trace back to 1 year, 1965, which is when hormonal birth control became popularized at that time. Women no longer have to be married. So what happens? The divorce rate spikes for a little while, and then it falls off because the marriage rate is also falling off to the point where we are in 2024, which is at 6.1%. Now, I just celebrated my 28-year anniversary with my wife last week. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
And I will tell you right now, it's a lifestyle choice is what it is, okay? One of the things that I would strongly disagree with Scott Galloway and other people as well, mostly TradCons bring this up. They say, well, you go get married because you'll be richer. You'll be happier. No, happiness is a subjective, relative. You can't quantify happiness, and I really wish we should just throw this bullshit away about trying to make happiness a metric of the success of your fucking life. Because happiness is an emotion, and happiness is a proximate outcome, not an ultimate outcome. And that's why women are on antidepressants, because we've sold them for years and years and years that it's some sort of sustainable goal state, and at some point we're all going to be just optimally happy, and we'll never have any bad feelings ever come in on us ever again. Well, yeah, if you take SSRIs, I'm sure that's probably going to happen. So we have the medical way of.
I wonder if Scott Galloway is referring to marriage when he was growing up.
More
like that,
probably
like something closer.
But you have to be realistic about this shit, because we're talking about this. Like I've been writing about this since like the mid 2000s. Married people make more money because they have to make more money. Otherwise, they're not married anymore. The number one precipitator of divorce is a woman starts to make more money than the guy does. Maybe they start at parity, and then she gets an increase in pay, or she gets a promotion at work. That guy falls off, and now because she's around guys who make more money than their husband, and now they're told that they're supposed to be in some sort of egalitarian, equalitarian marriage where it's 50-50. Well, it's not 50-50. If she's here and he's down here, guess what? He falls off, and she goes because hypergamy kicks back in. And the problem with this is like we're still clinging to this old 20th century ideal of what we think marriage ought to be in the 21st century, dealing with these realities on a daily fucking basis. And so when people say, well, you're going to make more money, you're going to be more happy, you're not going to, it's like, no. You're making more money because you have to make more money. And if you don't make more money, you are officially not married. And so therefore unmarried divorced people are less happy and not making as much money because they're no longer married. That's why.
I feel like this goes way back to the beginning of our conversation when we were saying like people glamorize sex work. People glamorize marriage.
Oh yeah.
To the point where they're like, oh, I want the white picket fence. I want to like have a husband, have children, blah, blah, blah.
Institution.
Yeah. It's like definitely like you're raised to want that kind of lifestyle, right? That you're like white picket fence,
what your mom
house,
had, what your grandpa
family,
had,
home, like all that stuff.
I'd kind of disagree with that. I'd say that women are raised to glamorize, like they look at marriage as not like a commitment and like a long-term relationship.
They want a wedding, not a marriage.
Bingo. They look at it as like the wedding is now this like ego glorification ceremony for the woman. It's got nothing to do with like the actual process of being in a relationship.
Or the sacrifices that she needs in order to stay in the wedding.
But now Sterling, you're putting it in terms of like that's like a proximate goal. Okay, it's here and it's gone and it's done, right? In an ultimate sense, women marry a man. They don't marry the man; they marry a lifestyle. If that guy can provide a particular lifestyle that is better, or it's more glamorous, or has more prestige, or has something else, if that guy has a lifestyle that she wants to be in his frame, right? If he wants to enter into his frame, that if they eventually they'll fall in love with the guy, because not necessarily because of the lifestyle, but hopefully that's how
becomes
it
fond.
But the reason why they get married in the first place is because that guy can provide a lifestyle that she wants to participate in, she wants to be a part of.
I mean, there's so many variables in the intention for getting married and the outcome of marriage, and a lot of it depends on where it's at in the country you live too. Each has its own set of rules.
And ethnic,
it's like in California, a prenup or a post-nup or a QNUP trust or whatever.
Or even arranged marriages, like in other countries.
But in California, if you're successful and you're marrying, your kid's mom and you want to be a stay-at-home mom or whatever, your prenup is only as good as her word of signing it. Because the attorney's smart, they're going to drain you out for all your money.
We really need to get you on.
California will, because you guys can pay 13% more in state
I'm just
income
saying,
taxes.
you can think you protect yourself all day long, and every state's different. But I know in California,
we need to get him on with Jen Sexton. What we need to do.
They don't
stand any weight value.
I have a question. Did you live and learn? That's why you said that.
Yeah, so I know trust law very well, and I can protect anybody. I know the
He knows
maritime
the,
laws.
He knows the rules.
I built my own trust and studied trust law for many years, and
Especially
there's
if
ways
you
out
have
of it.
kids.
I love my family and my ex-wife and my kids very much, But yeah, I mean, you have to learn a lot, especially if you're practicing yourself. And and this happens a lot where guys have worked their whole lives and get drained out, and their lack of knowledge, and the attorney's knowledge of their lack of knowledge and their estate and how much it's worth, and it becomes a thing where you get preyed on by attorneys that are collaborating behind the scenes and looking at your value of your estate and basically draining you down to a situation where you have to get into a mediation, and you basically tap out based on the fear of being broke, and the attorneys win and you lose, and so because it becomes an ego battle.
So you'd rather settle.
You should become friends with your partner in the midst of the divorce immediately and say, hey, if you're not smart.
That's interesting because that also keys on what Scott Galloway was saying. He's like, oh, rich, wealthier people stay together longer. They stay married. I'm like, yeah, because they have to. It's cheaper to keep her instead of like going through.
Well, like how many people do you know growing up that their parents stayed together just for them? Like I have a bunch of friends that parents were like that, and then as soon as they got into university, their parents were like, boop.
Yeah, that's great divorce.
I think that's why porn has probably saved more marriages.
There it is. That's my girl.
Remember, guys, don't stick your dick in crazy. No matter what they say. Remember, guys, don't stick your dick in crazy, number one. And number two, you can go ahead and marry that girl with a fat ass, but you will pay for it in the end. Maybe. So just be careful. All we want you guys to do is be informed. That's the only
what
thing.
you get yourself into, because there's, if you want to be married to a woman and she loves you and you guys love each other very much.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd say
I don't need a piece of paper to tell me that I love somebody.
I gotta throw this one out there before we close this show, because I've never done this before. I was gonna do a soft launch with me and my wife Missy, right? And on Instagram, it's 28 years. I said, hey, is it okay if we did that? She goes, well, I'll post a picture with you on here if you want to do that. I'm like, how about we do this? We set up this whole thing. You saw the picture. If you see my Instagram, it's up on my Instagram right now. And everybody's like, oh my God, is that? And I'll tell you, man, if it was the most like, everybody loved it or everybody just hated me.
Your wife is hot, man.
Yeah, she's all right. But the funniest thing about the whole thing was like just the amount of vitriol you get and the intensity of like, dude, how did you do that? How, tell me how you maintain this?
Because I'm Rolo.
Exactly. And then of course that's what I say is like, yeah, well, it's because I attribute a lot of it to sort of my red pill awareness, my writing and everything else. And people just simply don't want to hear that. They just want it to be some sort of like little magical, fairies came and sprinkled dust over.
They want it to be like a quick fix magic pill. They want it to be something you have to do consistently every day.
Well, that's why I said it's a lifestyle choice. And like when I got married with my wife, it's like we weren't rich. We were certainly not what Scott Galloway is saying. It's like we didn't, I mean, I had a degree. She had her, her job as well. And so, but we didn't get married for money. God forbid, I fucking had nothing at that time. So, but it was, I think that I attribute the success of me being able to raise my daughter because we're just been so tight for 28 years right now. And my daughter will, come and tell me like, oh, I love my parents so much because we're still together. Right. And a lot of her, like, I would say probably at least 90% of her friends' parents aren't together anymore.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that. Like, I'm really lucky that my parents are still together, and like they love each other so much, and I see how much they love each other, and I've seen that growing up. So it's like a very good representation of kind of the kind of a relationship.
So like you'll hear this all the time. It's like when they'll say, well, if you're going to vet for a woman, you got to see what her relationship is with her father. No, you need to see what the couple are. They still together?
Because
and what the relationship is.
Where like the mom has passed away and she was raised by her father, and people are like, oh, she's obviously got like or
daddy issues, mommy issues, blah blah blah. No, you need to look at the interaction between the parents.
Yeah, and if like let's say your spouse passes or your parent's spouse passes away, and you're still able to have like a good relationship with the parent, and they respect the other parent that has passed away, that shows like a lot of integrity.
Exactly. Okay, let's wrap.
Awesome.
We got to get these guys
the
home.
show, man.
This was wild, man. Crazy.
Did you know what you were getting into? No, you didn't.
All over the place.
Yeah, like, hey, just come on the
recommend
show.
people watch before. This is super tame compared to the other ones.
The girl you came with is gone, but you guys stuck around. Bravo. All right.
Thanks for having us.
I was intense. There's a lot of things I wanted to maybe have an opinion or comment on, but they were sensitive to some of my experiences. So I was like, okay, I mean, it taught me a lot, but at the same time, I had opinions, but I was like, maybe I should.
There's no judgment here.
No,
Men and
I
women
know,
are
but-
different,
No,
and
we're-
that's
we're good.
okay.
And
But
that's
some
I wish I
people,
heard
it's
them.
I just talk out of my ass all the time.
Psychax likes to talk. He said saying the quiet part loud. Men and women are different, and that's okay. But to some people, it's not okay to talk about it. And so that's where a lot of people get bent out of shape with shows like this. But you guys know, I mean, especially any of the girls who've been on here, there's no animosity between us and any of the girls. We certainly
Never.
don't hate women. And we're doing often when we give some of the advice we give it because we care about the women that come on the show as friends. But it gets misconstrued because when we say men and women are different, that means men are better and women are worse. That's not what we're saying. No one's saying that. We have different places. But the idea that men and women aren't different, what happens is now men can't transcend their problems with pornography, problems with being obsessed with a woman's physical appearance. That's one of the worst reasons to marry someone, is just because of their physical appearance. And women cannot transcend the fact that they happen to be addicted to the bad boy. They do like toxic relationships, and they chase after men that other women are attracted to, because if they don't admit that they do that, they can never move past it. And they keep living in this world of cope where it's like, no, I'm only dating Brock and Kyler because we have chemistry and because we have a good vibe and because he's a Sagittarius. No, you like fuck boys and you have a problem and you can't get through it, but you'll never get through it until you admit that it's a problem. That makes sense? Shout out to Kyler and Brock and Chad and all these other guys.
I was going to say, like,
even Chris Brown.
Even the girls who hate us, we still love them. Shout out to
women's
Jamie
are the
Lynn.
best
I think
thing
we can all
on the
agree
planet.
that we love women at this table.
Women are the best. So.
They are. Agreed.
Click the link in the description and I'll send you my high status networking playbook so you can start dating high quality women today.